The country club ballroom was decorated exactly how Dad would have wanted it. Navy blue and silver streamers, tables draped in white linen, a massive banner reading "Congratulations on 40 years at Patterson Associates." 200 guests milled around, colleagues from Dad's accounting firm, family, friends, relatives I hadn't seen in years. Everyone dressed in their finest, celebrating Gerald Patterson's retirement from the company he'd helped build into one of the city's most prestigious accounting firms. I stood near the bar in a simple black dress from Nordstrom Rack, purchased 3 years ago for $89. My shoes were comfortable flats from Target. My jewelry was minimal, small silver earrings, no necklace, a watch I'd owned since college. I knew exactly like what my family had always assumed I was. Someone barely getting by. My older brother Marcus approached with his wife Jennifer, both of them looking like they'd stepped out of a luxury car commercial. Marcus wore a custom Tom Ford suit that I knew cost at least $5,000. Jennifer's dress was Valentino, her shoes Christian Louboutin. They radiated success, wealth, the kind of polished perfection my family valued above everything else. "Isabel," Marcus said, his tone carrying that particular mix of affection and condescension he'd perfected over the years. "I'm surprised you made it. Thought you might be too busy with what are you calling it these days? Your consulting work." "I wouldn't miss Dad's retirement," I said evenly, taking a sip of my club soda. "I didn't drink at family events anymore. Needed to stay sharp." "Of course not," Jennifer said, touching my arm in that sympathetic way that made me want to scream. "Family is so important. Even when careers don't work out the way we planned, we always have family." I smiled and said nothing. Let them think what they wanted to think. My younger sister Christina joined us, her fiancé David in tow. Christina taught elementary school and lived in a modest apartment in the suburbs. She'd always been the kind one, the one who didn't judge, who called to check on me without any agenda. But even Christina had absorbed the family narrative about me. "Your Honda's still running?" she asked, genuinely curious. "That's impressive. What is it now, 13 years old?" 14, I corrected. Bought it used in 2010 with 30,000 miles. It's at 180,000 now. Runs perfectly. Marcus laughed, the sound carrying across the immediate area. Several guests turned to look. "Still driving that thing?" "Isabel, if you need help with a down payment on something newer, I could probably..." "I'm fine with my car," I said calmly. "It's reliable and paid off. Serves my purposes perfectly." "Serves your purposes," Marcus repeated, shaking his head with amusement. "Some of us have real careers that require us to maintain a certain image. You can't roll up to client meetings in a 14-year-old Honda Civic." "I manage," I said. "Do you?" Jennifer asked, her voice dripping with concern. "Because Marcus mentioned you're still living in that studio apartment downtown." "Honey, there's no shame in accepting help. Marcus and I have been talking and we think we might be able to get you an interview at his firm. Entry-level position, but it's a start. Real salary, benefits, retirement plan." I'd heard this offer approximately 15 times over the past 8 years. Each time delivered with the same patronizing kindness, the same assumption that I was desperate for rescue. "I appreciate the thought," I said, "but I'm happy with my current situation." "Current situation?" Marcus scoffed. "Isabel, you're 33 years old. You can't freelance forever. At some point you need stability. Look at Christina. She's a teacher, she has a pension. That's real security." Christina looked uncomfortable, clearly not enjoying being used as the example of acceptable career choices. Dad approached our circle, looking distinguished in his navy suit. He'd spent 40 years building Patterson Associates into a firm that employed over 100 people and managed accounts for some of the city's wealthiest families. He was proud of what he'd built, and rightfully so. He'd worked incredibly hard. "There's my youngest," he said, hugging me. "Glad you could make it, Isabel. Traffic wasn't bad coming from downtown." "Not too bad," I said. "Left early to be safe." "In that Honda," Marcus added, still amused by this fact. "Dad, you should see it. The paint's fading on the hood. There's a dent in the rear bumper from when she backed into that pole 2 years ago." "The car works fine," I said firmly. "But it's embarrassing," Marcus continued. "You're a Patterson. Even if your career hasn't exactly taken off, you could at least drive something that doesn't make the family look bad." Dad winced slightly. "Marcus, that's a bit harsh." Is it? Marcus asked. We're at your retirement party. You built a successful firm. Christina's a respected teacher. I'm a senior partner at Morrison & Klein. And Isabel drives a car that looks like it should be in a junkyard while doing freelance work that she can't even really explain. I can explain it, I said quietly. You've just never been interested in listening. Jennifer patted my arm again. Of course we're interested. Tell us about your consulting work. What exactly do you consult on? This was the part I'd learned to navigate carefully. Not lying exactly but not revealing the full truth either. Automotive industry consulting, I said. I work with dealerships on operations, sales strategies, expansion planning, customer experience optimization. Automotive consulting, Marcus repeated. So you help car dealerships sell cars? Something like that, I said. And this pays enough to live on? Jennifer asked, her skepticism barely masked. Because Marcus mentioned you never seem to have money for nice things. The apartment, the car, your clothes. I looked down at my Nordstrom Rack dress, my Target shoes. Let them see exactly what they expected to see. I live within my means, I said simply. The valet announcement came over the sound system. We'll begin bringing cars around in 30 minutes. Guests are welcome to enjoy cocktails while we prepare vehicles. At least you won't be embarrassed when the valet brings your car up, Marcus said. Everyone else here drives Mercedes, BMWs, Lexus. Your Honda will fit right in with the, well, it won't fit in at all actually. Marcus, Christina said quietly. That's enough. I'm just being honest, he said. We all tiptoe around it, but someone needs to tell Isabel the truth. She's wasting her life doing freelance work that barely pays the bills, driving a car that should have been replaced a decade ago, living in a studio apartment like she's still in college. At some point she needs to face reality. And what reality is that? I asked, my voice still calm. That whatever you're doing isn't working, he said bluntly. That it's time to give up the fantasy and get a real job. That Dad's retirement party should be a wake-up call. He built something substantial. So did I. Christina has a solid career. And you're still figuring things out at 33. The words hung in the air between us. Other guests had started to notice the tension, conversations dying down around us. Dad looked uncomfortable. Marcus, this isn't the time. When is the time? Marcus interrupted. We've been coddling her for years. Being supportive while she spins her wheels doing consulting work that clearly isn't panning out. Someone needs to be honest with her. I've been honest with you, I said quietly. You just haven't been listening. Then enlighten us, Jennifer said, her tone challenging. Tell us about this consulting career that has you driving a car from 2010 and shopping at Target. I opened my mouth to respond when the valet supervisor approached our group. I recognized him immediately. Daniel Martinez, who'd been working valet services for events at the country club for 6 years. Good kid, studying business management at the community college. Miss Torres, he said respectfully. We're bringing your vehicle around now. Mr. Castellano wanted to speak with you before you left. Said it was urgent regarding the Q4 expansion contracts. The group around me went silent. Castellano? Marcus asked. As in Robert Castellano? The GM of Premier Motors downtown. Yes, sir, Daniel said, still addressing me. Mr. Castellano is here. He came to speak with Ms. Torres about the expansion contracts. Should I tell him you're available? Please, I said calmly. And Daniel, thank you for the excellent service tonight. Make sure your team knows I appreciate their professionalism. Of course, Ms. Torres, he said, then walked away. Marcus stared at me. Why would Robert Castellano be here to see you about expansion contracts? Before I could answer, Robert himself appeared. Tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit, he was exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd spent 30 years in automotive sales and management. He'd been the GM at Premier Motors for 5 years before I'd promoted him to Regional Director of Operations 8 months ago. Isabel, he said, approaching with a leather portfolio. I apologize for interrupting your father's celebration, but the Q4 expansion contracts need your signature by Monday, and I know you're traveling to Phoenix next week for the new site inspection. He opened the portfolio, revealing a stack of documents with post-it flags marking signature lines. The letterhead was visible to everyone in our circle. Torres Automotive Group, Corporate Headquarters. Phoenix. Dad asked weakly. Isabel, what is this? Robert looked around at my family, then back at me. Should I come back later? No, it's fine, I said, accepting the portfolio. These are the contracts for the Scottsdale expansion? Yes, Robert confirmed. 2 new dealerships, total investment of $47 million. Construction begins in January. We're projecting both locations operational by June, which should add approximately $180 million in annual revenue across both sites. $180 million, Marcus repeated faintly. I flipped through the contracts quickly, checking the key terms I'd already reviewed via email. Everything looked correct. I signed each flagged page with the Montblanc pen I kept in my small purse, the one expensive item I carried, a gift to myself when Torres Automotive Group had crossed $1 billion in annual revenue 3 years ago. Robert, I said, handing back the signed contracts, these look good. Schedule the kickoff meeting with the Phoenix team for the week after next. I want the construction timeline confirmed before Thanksgiving. Absolutely, he said. Also, the numbers from the October sales figures came in this morning. We're up 23% across all locations compared to last October. The new sales training program you implemented is showing exceptional results. Excellent, I said. Email me the breakdown by location. I want to see which markets are outperforming and why. Will do, Robert said. He glanced at my family again, clearly sensing the strange energy. Gerald, congratulations on your retirement. Isabel speaks highly of your career accomplishments. Dad managed a nod, his face pale. Robert left, and the silence that followed was absolute. Torres Automotive Group, Christina whispered. Isabel, is that your company? Yes, I said simply. You own a car dealership? Marcus asked, his voice strangled. I own 43 car dealerships, I corrected. Across 7 states. We're expanding to Arizona with 2 new locations, which will bring us to 45. By the end of next fiscal year, we're projecting to have 52 dealerships in operation across 10 states. Jennifer made a small sound like she couldn't quite process what she was hearing. The company was founded 12 years ago, I continued, my voice calm and factual. I started with a single failing Toyota dealership in the warehouse district that was 3 months from bankruptcy. Bought it for $400,000. $100,000 down payment from my savings, the rest financed. Turned it profitable in 7 months by completely restructuring their sales approach and customer service model. 12 years ago, Dad said. You were 21. 22 when I closed the deal, I corrected. I'd spent 2 years after high school working in dealership sales, learning the industry from the ground up. Figured out what was broken, what could be fixed, what customers actually wanted versus what dealers assumed they wanted. You never mentioned this, Mom said, appearing at Dad's elbow. She'd been circulating among guests but had clearly caught the last part of the conversation. I tried to, I said. Remember when I was 23 and invited everyone to what I called an important business dinner? I'd arranged a private room at Valentino's. I was going to show you the financials, introduce you to my business partners, explain what I was building. Mom's face went white. You said you had a business opportunity to discuss. Your father thought you were involved in a pyramid scheme. We didn't go. None of you came, I confirmed. I sat in that private room with my CFO and my head of operations, who'd both taken time off to meet my family. After that, I stopped trying to explain. It seemed easier to let you believe whatever you wanted to believe. Marcus had pulled out his phone, typing frantically. Torres Automotive Group. He read from what was clearly a Google search. One of the Southwest's fastest-growing dealership networks. 43 locations across Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, California, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Annual revenue last fiscal year, $2.1 billion. Private ownership, no external investors. He looked up at me, his face completely drained of color. $2.1 billion? $2.3 billion this fiscal year if we hit our Q4 targets, I said. Which we will. We're currently tracking at 107% of projected sales. I don't understand, Jennifer said. You drive a 2010 Honda Civic. You live in a studio apartment. You dress like, she gestured at my outfit. I drive a 2010 Honda Civic because it's reliable and practical, I said. The studio apartment downtown is actually the penthouse of a building I own. 4,000 square feet with a private terrace and city views. I bought the building 8 years ago as a real estate investment. The ground floor retail generates $85,000 monthly in lease income. And I dress like this because I don't need designer clothes to prove anything to anyone. Christina had tears in her eyes. All this time we thought you were struggling. You assumed I was struggling, I corrected gently. I never said I was. You saw the old car and the simple clothes and drew your own conclusions. The freelance consulting, Dad said slowly. That was real. Very real, I said. I consult with my own dealerships. I personally visit every location at least twice a year to assess operations, talk to staff, review sales data, and make strategic decisions about expansion and improvement. That's why I travel constantly. That's why I'm always busy. Marcus was still staring at his phone. You're listed as the sole owner. No partners, no board of directors. You own the entire company outright. Correct, I said. I learned early that external investors mean external control. I've grown Torres Automotive Group entirely through profits and strategic debt. Every dealership we acquire is purchased with cash from revenue. We carry zero corporate debt. The Q4 expansion Robert mentioned, Dad said. You're spending $47 million in cash? The Scottsdale locations, yes. We're also looking at 3 properties in Utah and 2 in Idaho that would bring our total investment this quarter to $89 million. But our cash reserves are strong, and the Utah and Idaho markets show excellent growth potential. Jennifer had sunk into a nearby chair. We offered you an entry-level job. We felt sorry for you. I know, I said. Not unkindly, just stating a fact. You let us, Marcus said, his voice rising slightly. You sat there year after year listening to us offer career advice, suggesting jobs, pitying you, and you never said anything. I said plenty, I countered. You just never listened. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you dismissed it. You'd already decided what my life was, and nothing I said could change that narrative. Because you were driving a Honda Civic. Marcus exploded. Because you dressed like you shopped at thrift stores. Because you lived in what we thought was a studio apartment. And therefore I must be failing, I finished. That was your logic. Nice car equals success. Old car equals failure. Designer clothes equal achievement. Target clothes equals struggle. You never once asked about actual revenue, actual growth, actual business operations. You just looked at surface-level indicators and made assumptions. Dad had sat down heavily in a chair. Isabel, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I said. This isn't about making you feel bad. It's just the truth. For 12 years I've been building something substantial while you all assumed I was barely making it. Why didn't you correct us? Mom asked, her voice breaking. Why let us believe something so wrong? Because after that business dinner where nobody showed up, I realized you weren't interested in the truth, I said. You were comfortable with your version of my life. The struggling youngest daughter who needed guidance and support. It gave you purpose, made you feel helpful. I wasn't going to take that away from you. That's not fair, Christina said quietly. We love you. We wanted to help. I know, I said. But you wanted to help the version of me you'd created in your minds. You never bothered to find out who I actually was. The valet supervisor's voice came over the sound system again. Now bringing vehicles to the main entrance. Please proceed to the front of the building. That would be my Honda, I said, gathering my small purse. I should go. Wait, Dad said, standing. Please. Give us a chance to, we need to talk about this. Really talk. We can talk, I agreed. But Dad, this is your retirement party. You should enjoy it. Celebrate with your colleagues and friends. This conversation can wait. I don't want it to wait, he said firmly. Isabel, you've just told us you built a $2 billion company while we thought you were struggling as a freelance consultant. That's not something we can just move past in 5 minutes. Marcus had been frantically scrolling through more search results on his phone. There's an article here from Automotive News. From 6 months ago. Torres Automotive Group revolutionizes dealership model. It talks about your customer service innovations, your sales training programs, your expansion strategy. They interviewed you. I remember that interview, I said. The journalist was particularly interested in our no-pressure sales approach. Most dealerships still use aggressive tactics that customers hate. We've built our entire model around making car buying pleasant and transparent. This article says you're considered one of the most innovative leaders in the automotive retail industry, Marcus continued, his voice hollow. It says business schools are studying your dealership model. Harvard Business Review published a case study about your expansion strategy. That was last year, I confirmed. Professor Williams's team spent 3 months analyzing our acquisition and integration process. It was quite thorough. Jennifer was crying quietly. We've been so horrible to you. You've been dismissive, I corrected. Not horrible. There's a difference. I don't see much difference, Christina said. Isabel, I'm so sorry. We should have listened. We should have believed in you. You believed what you could see, I said. I just didn't give you much to see. That was deliberate. Robert Castellano had reappeared at the edge of our group, looking apologetic. Isabel, one more thing. The valet brought your car around, but there's an issue with the left front tire. Looks like a slow leak. I've had them pull it back to check the pressure and inspect for damage. Thank you, Robert, I said. I appreciate you handling that. Of course, he said. Also, your new company vehicle arrived at the dealership this morning. The Range Rover you ordered for site inspections. If you'd like, I can have someone drive it over. You could take it tonight and leave the Honda for service. The Range Rover is at Premier Motors? I asked. Yes, just got delivered. Fully loaded, exactly as you specified. I can have it here in 20 minutes if you'd like. I considered. You know what, yes. Please have someone bring it over. And Robert, make sure whoever drives it is someone trustworthy. I'll drive it myself, he said. Be back shortly. After he left, Marcus said quietly, You ordered a Range Rover. For site inspections, I confirmed. When I visit construction sites or properties we're considering for acquisition, the Honda isn't always practical. I need something with 4-wheel drive and higher clearance. The Range Rover is a business vehicle, registered to the company. You're buying a Range Rover while telling us the Honda is perfectly fine, Jennifer said. The Honda is perfectly fine for my personal use, I corrected. The Range Rover is for specific business purposes. They serve different functions. Dad had been quiet, processing. 12 years, he said finally. You've been doing this for 12 years and we never knew. How is that possible? Because you never looked, I said simply. Torres Automotive Group isn't a secret. We have a website, social media presence, regular press coverage. We sponsor local sports teams, support community programs, employ over 1,800 people across our locations. We're not hiding. You just never thought to look because you'd already decided what my career was. I feel like an idiot, Marcus said. Worse than an idiot. I've been lecturing you about career choices while you built something I couldn't even imagine building. You're not an idiot, I said. You're a successful senior partner at a prestigious law firm. You built a good career. You just made assumptions about mine. Assumptions, he repeated bitterly. I called your career a failure. I mocked your car. I offered you an entry-level job at my firm like I was doing you some huge favor. You were trying to help, I said. Based on what you thought you knew. I'm not angry about that. You should be, he said. We've been condescending to you for years. Robert returned 20 minutes later driving a black Range Rover with temporary plates. It was beautiful, fully loaded with every option, custom wheels, premium sound system. Exactly what I'd specified when ordering it 6 weeks ago. He parked it at the country club entrance and walked over with the keys. All set. I had detail clean it this afternoon so it's showroom perfect. Thank you, Robert, I said, accepting the keys. And the Honda? I'll have service check it Monday morning. Probably just needs the tire pressure adjusted, but we'll inspect it thoroughly and call you with the results. Perfect, I said. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. You too, boss, he said, then headed back inside. The word boss hung in the air. He called you boss, Christina said unnecessarily. Because I am his boss, I said. Robert runs regional operations, but he reports to me. Just like all 43 general managers across our dealership network report up through the executive team that reports to me. I started toward the Range Rover, but Dad caught my arm gently. Please don't leave like this. Stay. Help me celebrate this retirement properly. Let us really see you, not the version we created. I looked at his face. Saw genuine distress, genuine desire to understand. Hey, I said. I'll stay. But Dad, I need you to understand something. I'm not looking for approval. I don't need validation for the choices I've made. I built Torres Automotive Group because I saw an opportunity and had the skills to execute on it. What you think about that doesn't change the reality of what I've accomplished. I understand, he said. But that doesn't mean I can't be proud. Even if I'm 12 years late realizing I should be. We walked back into the country club together. Word had spread through the party. I could see it in the way people looked at me differently. No longer the struggling youngest daughter, but something else entirely. One of Dad's colleagues approached. Gerald, I had no idea your daughter owned Torres Automotive. My son bought a truck from your Albuquerque location last month. Said it was the best car buying experience he'd ever had. That's our goal, I said. Making car buying pleasant instead of painful. You're doing something right, the colleague said. The industry needs more people like you. The evening continued. People who'd barely acknowledged me before wanted to talk business, ask questions, understand how I'd built the company. I answered politely, professionally, but kept it brief. This was Dad's night, not mine. Later, Marcus found me on the terrace overlooking the golf course. Can we talk? Of course, I said. He was quiet for a moment, looking out at the darkened fairways. I've been thinking about all the times I gave you career advice. All the lectures about getting a real job, about stability, about growing up. I remember, I said. You must have wanted to tell me to shut up, he said. To throw your success in my face. Sometimes, I admitted. But mostly I just felt sad that you couldn't see me clearly enough to realize I didn't need your advice. I'm sorry, he said. Truly, genuinely sorry. Not just for the advice but for the dismissal, the condescension, all of it. You deserved better from your family. Thank you, I said. That means something. Can I ask you a question? He said. Why the old Honda? Why the simple clothes? If you have billions of dollars, why live like you don't? I considered how to explain it. Because the car and the clothes aren't what matter. Building something substantial matters. Creating jobs for 1,800 people matters. Revolutionizing how customers experience car buying matters. The Range Rover serves a business purpose. I need it for inspections and site visits. But the Honda serves my personal needs perfectly. Why replace it just to impress people? To impress us, he said quietly. Your family. If you can only be impressed by surface-level displays of wealth, then we have a problem, I said. I'd rather you be impressed by what I've actually built. The systems I've created, the innovations I've implemented, the growth I've sustained. That's what matters. He nodded slowly. You're right. You're absolutely right. We stood in silence for a moment. The offer to help with a job, he said finally. That was incredibly insulting, wasn't it? A little, I admitted. But you meant well. Meaning well isn't enough, he said. I should have actually known you before trying to help you. You can start now, I said. Better late than never. Dad found us on the terrace. There you both are. I'm about to give my retirement speech. I'd like my children there. We walked back inside together. The room had filled up, easily 200 people now. Dad took the microphone and started his speech. Talked about 40 years in accounting, the clients who'd become friends, the colleagues who'd become family. Thanked Mom for her support, acknowledged Marcus and Christina's achievements. Then he got to me. And my youngest daughter, Isabel, he said, his voice catching slightly. I'm embarrassed to admit that until tonight, I didn't fully understand what she'd accomplished. I made assumptions, offered advice she didn't need, and generally failed to see her clearly. Tonight I learned that while I was building my career in accounting, she was building something far more impressive. Torres Automotive Group, a company that revolutionized an industry while I wasn't paying attention. The room was silent. Isabel, he continued, I'm sorry it took me 12 years to really see you. And I'm incredibly proud of what you've built. Not just the business but the character it took to build it while everyone around you doubted. That kind of determination, that kind of vision, that's something special. Applause filled the room. People stood. Dad gestured for me to join him. I walked to the front reluctantly. Took the microphone he offered. I'm not good at speeches, I said. But I want to say something. My father spent 40 years building Patterson Associates into a firm that serves this community with integrity and excellence. That's worth celebrating. And while I took a different path, I learned from watching him that building something meaningful requires dedication, long hours, and unwavering commitment to doing things right. So thank you, Dad, for that example. Even if you didn't realize I was following it. More applause. Dad hugged me tightly. I love you, he whispered. And I'm so sorry. I love you too, I whispered back. And we're okay. The party continued late into the night. I stayed until the end, talking with Dad's colleagues, answering questions about the automotive industry, explaining my expansion strategy to genuinely interested listeners. At midnight, I finally headed to the Range Rover. Marcus and Christina walked me out. This is a beautiful vehicle, Christina said, running her hand along the sleek black paint. Very professional. It'll serve its purpose, I said. Though honestly, I'll probably still drive the Honda most days once it's fixed. Hard to break 13 years of habit. Keep driving the Honda, Marcus said. Don't change who you are just because we finally figured out who that is. I won't, I promised. Can we have dinner next week? Christina asked. Really talk? No assumptions, no condescension. Just siblings getting to know each other. I'd like that, I said honestly. I drove home to my penthouse in the building I owned, thinking about the evening. About revelations and assumptions, about family and pride, about the difference between what people see and what's actually there. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Honda is fixed. Just low tire pressure. Ready for pickup Monday. I smiled. The 14-year-old Honda Civic with faded paint and a dent in the bumper. Still running. Still reliable. Still perfect for exactly what I needed it to be. Just like me.